Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to thank you for being here today. And I know in the previous episode, I had all intention of carrying on the story from where I left off. I've had a little change of heart, and I felt that after each episode, I would like to give a breakdown of what type of narcissistic abuse actually, what type of narcissistic abuse I endured in the scenario that I explained. So it just better gives you an idea of what types of narcissistic abuse you're going through, so that you know that you're most definitely not a crazy person, and what you're witnessing and what you are experiencing is most definitely abuse. So, welcome everybody. I am the mirror. Let us get started. So, in my previous episode, I shared a deeply personal experience from my childhood growing up with a mother who was most definitely emotionally unavailable, manipulative, and extremely deceptive. And she still is. Let's not forget that part. So I witnessed my father's brokenness after he found out about her affair. Um, and I experienced the aftermath of that betrayal. So, like I said, today we're going to break down the impact of that situation and the kind of abuse that it is and how it shows up in our lives and why we respond the way we do when we've been in such environments. So, let us just go ahead and define the type of narcissistic abuse, what it is, and what I experienced. So, the abuse was not physical abuse, it was emotional and psychological abuse. And narcissistic abuse is a form of emotional manipulation where the abuser makes you doubt your reality. And they do this most of the time by disregarding your feelings and your needs. So, in my case, my mother's affair was a betrayal, but it was so much more than just that. It was gaslighting. So, when I saw her with another man and told my cousin about it, I was accused of lying, which is a tactic that narcissists use to distort reality and keep control. One thing you need to remember is that narcissists love to be in control. Narcissists often try to invalidate their children's perspectives, making them question everything that they experience. Um, let's look at infidelity, right? Infidelity is very common in narcissistic relationships. It's about seeking attention and validation from outside sources, and it often causes deep wounds. My father's pain from his betrayal is something I still feel even as an adult. Narcissistic abuse doesn't just hurt the person that's directly involved, it impacts everyone around them, especially children who are left trying to make sense of the world where love and trust become conditional. The common reactions and trauma responses. So, when we grow up in this type of environment, we often develop certain trauma responses. For me, one of the biggest ones was people pleasing, and still trying to crawl out of that one. I've gotten much better, but yeah, that was a very big one. Children of narcissists often feel that they need to behave perfectly in order to earn love or approval. So, the uncertainty of never knowing if they accepted creates anxiety and the need to constantly please those around them. Another response is emotional numbness. So, I remember growing up in a house full of turmoil and emotional chaos. Yet I couldn't show how I felt. I had to wear that mask, pretending every single day everything was fine when I was falling apart inside, to a point that I actually felt dead on the inside. And that's something children of narcissists do. We suppress our emotions because expressing them can trigger anger or frustration in the abuser. We also become hypervigilant. This is one or is another common response. You begin to read people, you read their moods, you anticipate what might happen next, and you're constantly living on edge. You're always waiting for the next argument, the next betrayal, the next emotional blow up. The trust issues are huge. Trust becomes something that's nearly impossible to build when you've seen your mother lie and betray your father. Empathy and validation. If any of this resonates with you, I want to remind you that none of it is your fault. These reactions, people pleasing, emotional numbness, hypervigilance, are all survival mechanisms, mostly because you're an empath. You feel, and the narcissist really does it. And they helped you get through the emotional chaos. These reactions that you had helped you get through the emotional chaos of growing up with a narcissistic parent or parents. But they most definitely not who you are. And you don't have to live this way forever. I think that's something very important that you need to understand. What you're going through is real. Your feelings are valid. You were gaslit. You were manipulated. You were abandoned emotionally. But I want you to know, like I said before, you are not crazy. You also are not alone. And you don't have to carry this burden with you any longer. It's time for you to heal. And it's okay to take the first step, even if it's just listening to this podcast. While actually listening to this podcast, you have started taking a step towards your healing because you have noticed the pattern and you have noticed what has been going on and you want to change that. I just want to talk a little bit about healing. Healing from narcissistic abuse is most definitely not a linear process. I would say it is a journey. One of the first steps, which I found that helped me start my healing process, was learning how to set boundaries. The thing with narcissists is they do not respect boundaries. So it's crucial for you to start setting them for yourself. Even if it's just mentally or emotionally at first, start protecting your space, your energy, your feelings. Another thing that I found to be a real game changer is self care. It's something that sounds so simple, but taking care of your physical and emotional needs is vital. Yeah, you don't have to start something out of this world. Um, Start with small practices like um, meditating, journal about your feelings, do things that help you reconnect with your inner self. Remember that through the narcissistic abuse, we tend to lose ourselves and not really know who we are as a human being. So it's important for us to start reconnecting with our inner self, start discovering ourselves again, and most importantly, start seeking validation from within. In narcissistic relationships, it was drummed into us that you need to seek approval from others, but that's not true. In order for us to heal, the validation comes from the inside. We need to love ourselves, trust your intuition. Your worth is never defined by someone else's actions or words. And that's something I really want you to remember. If at any point you are struggling to process everything on your own, please do not hesitate to seek therapy. Professionals are there to navigate the deep emotions and trauma that comes with narcissistic abuse. So don't ever feel like you do not need to see a therapist. If you're struggling, go and see a therapist. There's absolutely nothing wrong with sitting down and chatting to somebody. You can try it out. If it's not for you, you know it's not for you, and you can move on from there. Something I want you to remember is that this journey isn't easy, but healing starts with awareness. You are not broken, even though you feel like that sometimes. And your reactions are not a sign of weakness, they're your way of surviving what you've been through. You can break free from that past, and you deserve to create a future that's full of love, self respect, and peace. If you're listening to this today, you're already on that path to healing. Keep moving forward. No matter how small the steps may seem, remember, we break free together. I would just love to end this podcast today with a quote that I think is very fitting. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Rumi. Love and light to you. Goodbye.